Hey everybody, Eric Dorward here at the Spartan Rocketry Club, continuing my build here of the Estes Sasha. So now it's time to start the finishing process, and that means, well, this is going to take a while, because it always does. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start filling in the grain in the wood, and there's a lot of it, and I'm going to end up doing that with some wood fill here, at least to start. That's the first step. So I've taken some of this, probably about a tablespoon's worth, and added a bit of water to it, stirred it up quite a bit, and now I've got a pretty thick paste here. It's a little thinner than sometimes I end up making it, because I am just eyeballing it every time. But this is where I'm going to start, and I'm just going to end up brushing this on. There are a few things that I will mention before I really get too far into this. One is, so I'm not going to bother with the top stage on camera, I don't think. We'll just do the bottom. I thought about filling in the gaps where the little dowels go in with the wood fill here, just kind of as like a putty, as a spackle even. I'm not sure if I'm going to do that. To start with, I'm going to paint this stuff on and see how it looks. It's entirely possible that these gaps will be really obvious and look bad, and I will do something about it. But I'm not going to start by filling them in separately. Second, actually coming back to this again, the top tube of this, overall, the tube is pretty good with regard to the spiral, I think. I mean, there are a couple spots, and they seem to be like the top and the bottom of this thing. The spiral kind of comes and goes. Like right in here, I can't even tell where it is. And it goes from about here to here without any obvious spiral. So I might not end up doing anything about the spiral with the top stage. The bottom stage, though, the spiral is really obvious, so I'm going to try to fill that in. I probably will do some of the spiral on the top, but at least for now, since I'm doing the bottom, I will show you what I'm going to end up doing with that as I go along. So this stuff, I have it mixed up so that it's a consistency of a pretty thick paint. And I'm just going to paint it on. I'm going to try to get nice even coverage of all the exposed wood. This part, by the way, the bottom fins, they were the ones that had this kind of weird color variation in them. So I don't know what exactly happened to the wood, the tree when it was growing, that made it do that, but I'm going to make sure that I'm covering that at least to some degree, because I bet it's going to affect the grain. I also want to make sure that I am doing a pretty good job coating all this. So there's a spot over here that I missed, at least on the first pass. I'm going to make sure that I get to the edges here, because remember, I didn't round them, I sanded them a little bit, but they're very porous for one thing, so I want to make sure I fill them in. Otherwise, it's going to be kind of hard to paint them and make sure that they get good coverage on the first go. I'm also going to make sure that I'm coating both sides of the fin basically at the same time. So I don't want to do this then this. I don't want to do all the near faces to me and then come back and flip it around and do the rear face. This piece of balsa is fairly thick. But if you get one side of it wet, and although this is pretty thick, it is still wet because it's, I used water, you could end up warping the wood. And I do not want to warp the wood. That would be bad. So we'll try to avoid that. I'm also going to try not to leave, when I brush it on one side, sometimes I end up putting kind of like a thick little layer right along the edge of the fin right here. You can see this happened again. I want to make sure I smooth that out, because I don't want to leave any unnecessarily thick parts that I'll just have to end up sanding later. So this part, construction wise anyway, it goes pretty quickly because this stuff dries very quickly. This will be good to sand in less than an hour in all likelihood. The other steps of my my work the finishing process. They all take much longer than that. I'm going to take the time to fill in the, I'm just going to paint over basically this whole tube because it's, the grain here, or the spiral in the tube is pretty bad. So I'm just going to paint that all in. That means I have to sand the tube now too, which is, you know, a minor annoyance, but it's not that big a deal. So the more I paint, the thicker thicker my wood fill gets in the cup because it's evaporating, and I am preferentially, not purposely, but I am preferentially taking off the most liquid part of it out of the cup every time I load up the brush. So this is going to get thicker and harder to apply as I go, which is a manageable problem. It's just something to be aware of. If it gets really bad, I could always add a couple more drops of water near the end to make sure that it's still brushable. Because at some point, you know, if you let it dry enough, you basically just get a putty. And that's what you had when you started with, and there's a reason that I added water to it, and that is you can't paint the putty onto the fin. I'm going to make sure I get these little flat segments in here right close to the rocket body as well. It's actually kind of difficult. I want to get that just for nice consistency's sake. Again, filling in the tube, just painting over everything. I mean, I end up painting on the tube a little bit anyway, so you know, this isn't the world's worst thing to happen. Kind of inadvertently do it anyway. If I'm gonna accidentally do it, I might as well do a decent job in covering everything. Okay, it's halfway done. I have way more wood fill than I need here, so after I finish this bit, I'm just going to continue on off camera into the upper stage, which I shouldn't need as much. So, I mean, it'll be close, but the amount of wood in the upper stage isn't as high. You know, the surface area isn't as high as in the lower stage, I don't think. I guess we shall see. Again, while it would be nice to not have any particularly obvious brush strokes in this, you're going to sand all this down anyway. So if you do, it's not the worst thing in the world. There are some pockets in this of wood fill that I didn't mix up terribly well either. Those I really don't want to leave on the rocket, on the fin. If I can smooth them out, see there, I put one on again. I'm going to just remove that. That's probably not going to smooth out very nicely because it's like a dried bead. It didn't get hydrated properly earlier. So you put it back in the cup and try to hydrate it with what's in there. Or I can just remove it entirely. It's so small, it's probably not going to make much of a difference. And I am glopping, of course, on my cutting pad here as well, which isn't great, but you know, clean that up when I'm done. I'm not sure how many coats this is going to take. A lot of this wood seemed pretty nice, so it might only take one pass at this. We'll make that decision on the fly. Be careful around the launch lug, don't crud it up. You don't want to get any of the wood fill inside the launch lug, because that would make it smaller than the actual diameter that you need it to be, which would make it potentially get stuck on the rod, which I've had that happen. It's kind of embarrassing, especially if you're flying with a bunch of people. It's like, oh, that's not what I intended to have happen. I mean, it happens, and sometimes it's because the rod itself is warped or it's got some residue from a previous launch on it, but still, I would prefer not to have it happen. And if it happens because I got paint or wood fill or whatever in a place where it shouldn't be in my build, well, that one's on me. I would like to not have things be on me if I can help it. A little more. This stuff does clean up nicely, which is another perk for using it. It's very water soluble, so all you need to do is soap and water cleanup. Last few spots that I need to get here, so I'm going to eventually paint the tube there. I'm going to just use a little bit here to fill in this end. And same deal down here. Okay, and then fill in spiral. You'll notice too, I'm trying my best to stay away from the red part. The red part needs to fit smoothly into the second stage. So I don't want to do anything that could potentially mess that up. I might end up having to sand it later. But like this part of the spiral right here, I'm going to be very careful about putting a little bit of this stuff near it, but I'm not going to get right up to the edge. And I think that's the only spot where it was even kind of questionable. Alright, so that looks reasonably good. There's a little bit there that should probably come off. Looks pretty good. Alright, so that just needs to dry for half an hour or so. I probably will let it go longer than that, but let it dry for a bit, and then I will sand it down, and we'll see what we have from there. Alright, thanks for watching. I will see you in the next video.